My mom faked multiple sclerosis for a decade while I cleaned her floors, skipped meals, and gave up art school for her. When I asked her why she did it, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "Because it worked." I just walked out. That was 11 months ago. Today, she was crying in her jail cell when they brought up the footage. My mom pretended she had multiple sclerosis for 10 years, and during that time I scrubbed her floors, skipped meals, and even gave up the chance to go to art school just to take care of her. When I finally asked her why she lied, she looked straight at me and said, "Because it worked." That was the last straw. I just walked out. That happened almost a year ago. 11 months, to be exact. And now, today, I saw her crying in a jail cell when the officers showed her the footage. I was only 13 when doctors told us my mom had MS. We didn't have much money back then, and when she cut her work hours down to a quarter of what they used to be, things got even harder. My older sister, Emma, who was 17 at the time, started working double shifts to help keep us afloat. Meanwhile, I quit every after-school activity I loved so I could clean the bathrooms, mop the floors, and make dinner every night. The only thing that really kept me going was the hope that maybe, just maybe, Mom would finally notice me and show me some appreciation. But all the hugs, the kisses, and the "I love yous" went straight to Emma. At first, I thought maybe it was just coincidence. Then my 16th birthday came around, and I realized it wasn't. I didn't have any friends to celebrate with, but I still wanted to do something small. So I asked Emma if she wanted to come over for a movie and to bring her boyfriend, Ben. By then she was 20 and already living on her own, though she still sent money home to help us. We all sat down in front of the TV, watching The Notebook, when Ben walked in with a cake. Everyone started singing, and I felt this strange mix of awkwardness and happiness. For once, the attention was actually on me. But that feeling didn't last long. The second Mom sliced into the cake, my smile dropped. It was an ice cream cake. I'm lactose intolerant, but it just so happened to be Emma's favorite. First slice for the woman of the hour. Mom cheered and handed the plate to Emma. I tried so hard to swallow my disappointment and remind myself how much Emma had done for us. But then Mom made it worse. "Oh, I got her something too," she said, pulling out a basket full of Emma's favorite candy. My throat went dry, and I just kind of zoned out. I slipped quietly back to my room, not because I was angry, but because I didn't want them to see me crying. A few minutes later, I heard Emma helping Mom up the stairs. My heart skipped. Were they actually coming to check on me? The door opened, and it was just Mom. "You need to be more grateful for your sister, Ava," she told me. That was the moment I finally asked the question that had been sitting in my chest since I was a kid. "Mom, why don't you ever compliment me? Why don't you ever give me attention?" She let out this long sigh before answering. "Honey, if you can't appreciate Emma, then you need to leave. People always say their life flashes before their eyes when they're about to die. Turns out you don't have to be dying for that to happen." Right then, memories came rushing back. Me crying on the kitchen floor from exhaustion, all those dinners I cooked while going to bed hungry, the art school I couldn't afford because Mom said it was too expensive, and then the $2,000 laptop she bought Emma that same month. All the times I never heard a single "thank you." "You know what, Mom? You're right," I finally said. Maybe she was bluffing, but I was finished. Her mouth opened like she wanted to say something, but I was already shoving my stuff into black trash bags. Tears were stinging my eyes, but I refused to let her see me cry. The sad part is, it wouldn't have taken much to get me to stay. All she had to do was tell me she was sorry, that she loved me, or even just admit she was wrong. Instead, she staggered out without a word. So that's how I spent my 16th birthday. Sitting on a bus with puffy red eyes, black trash bags piled around me, heading to my dad's house. At least Dad was kinder. Well, sort of. I was so drained that I just wanted to change the subject and talk about anything else. But then he said, "Ava, I know it's tough taking care of your mom, but you should really be more like your sister." I just narrowed my eyes and let out a sarcastic laugh. That sealed it. My 16th birthday was still all about Emma. So I went to bed. Turns out, it wasn't over, because the day after was worse. When I woke up, I heard Mom downstairs. That shocked me, since she and Dad hadn't spoken a single word since her diagnosis. All my sadness burned into anger, and I stormed down the stairs. "Mom, I'm sorry that the first time you sold half my stuff just to buy Emma a new Lego set, I let it slide, because that made you think you could keep doing it." "Ava," she tried to cut in, but I kept going. "I'm sorry I never told you how many times I went hungry so you could have a better dinner." Then I stopped, because I heard Dad's keys jangling. He was standing there, ready to drive her home, and his face was red with anger. That's when I realized he hadn't known the full story, and for once, he was taking my side. Then something unexpected happened. Mom left her bag behind, and inside was Emma's laptop. Without even thinking, I snapped a picture of it and posted it on Facebook with a "for sale" tag, on the same account that my entire family follows. Within 10 minutes, I had sold it for nearly half its value. I updated the post with a sold photo and tagged both Mom and Emma. A strange, chaotic excitement bubbled in my stomach as I powered my phone off. A few hours later, I checked and saw dozens of missed calls and texts, not just from Mom and Emma, but from other family members too. That's when it hit me. The butterfly effect is real. Because this one small act uncovered a dark truth about Emma that changed the way I saw her forever. The first text I opened was from my Aunt Patricia. It just said, "Call me now." So I did. "Ava, what's going on with you and your mother?" she asked right away. I started explaining everything. The birthday disaster, years of neglect, even selling the laptop, which I was already regretting. But Aunt Patricia cut me off. "No, Ava. I mean about the MS. Your cousin Zoe told me she saw your mom at the casino last night, dancing and drinking without her cane." I felt my stomach drop like a rock. It was like getting hit by a truck. The casino? Dancing? What? I stammered, hardly able to form words. Aunt Patricia explained that Zoe had been there for a friend's birthday party and spotted Mom across the room, moving like nothing was wrong, like she didn't have a single care in the world. There wasn't a cane or walker anywhere in sight. Not even the faintest trace of fatigue or the symptoms she always claimed were eating her alive. Zoe said Mom had been laughing like she didn't have a care in the world, sipping cocktails, and even spent nearly an hour straight out on the dance floor, moving like she'd never even heard of multiple sclerosis. "Are you sure it was her?" I asked, though deep down I already knew the truth. Honestly, I think part of me had always suspected something was off about Mom's illness. I thanked Aunt Patricia, hung up, and just sat there with my mind spinning a mile a minute. It felt like puzzle pieces, ugly, twisted ones, were snapping into place all at once. I started remembering things that had never quite added up. How Mom always seemed to perk up the second Emma walked in the door. How her symptoms magically got worse whenever I started asking questions. How she never once let me go to her doctor appointments, always brushing it off with, "It's too stressful for you." Looking back, the red flags were everywhere. But instead of trusting what I saw with my own eyes, I chose to believe her lies. Without thinking, I grabbed my phone and called Emma, completely forgetting about the whole laptop mess. "Before you start screaming at me about the laptop, I need to tell you something important." I rushed out the second she picked up. "What could possibly be more important than you selling my stuff?" she snapped, her voice cutting like glass. I told her what Aunt Patricia had just revealed. Silence. An uncomfortable, heavy silence that stretched on way too long. "That's ridiculous," Emma finally muttered, but her tone cracked. Zoe must have seen somebody else who looked like Mom, but even she didn't sound convinced by her own words. For Emma to waver, even a little, was huge. She'd defended Mom through everything. "Emma, think about it," I said, my voice firm. "Have you ever seen a single medical record? Ever spoken to her doctors? Has anyone besides Mom ever actually confirmed she is a mess?" Another long silence. Then Emma exhaled, shaky and uneven. She started, then hung up before finishing. I just stared at my phone, numb all over. If Mom had been faking this whole time, what did that mean? Why on earth would she do something like that? My mind reeled over all the sacrifices Emma and I had made. Her working endless double shifts, me becoming the maid of the house, the donations people had given for treatments, the fundraisers at church, and my entire childhood wasted caring for someone who might not have even been sick. Dad came home a couple of hours later, looking worn down. I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Dad, I think Mom's been faking her MS." I blurted the second he walked through the door. He froze mid-step, then slowly turned toward me. The color drained right out of his face. "What did you just say?" I repeated Aunt Patricia's story word for word. Instead of laughing it off or getting mad, Dad sat heavily at the kitchen table and buried his head in his hands. "Oh God," he whispered. That's when I realized he wasn't shocked. "Not really. You suspected something, didn't you?" I pressed, my voice rising. All this time, Dad finally admitted he'd had doubts for years. That was one of the reasons their marriage fell apart. He'd tried pushing her to see different doctors, begged her to get second opinions, but she always refused. And when he pushed too hard, she'd threatened to take us away forever so he'd never see us again. "So you just left us with her?" I snapped, barely believing what I was hearing. "I tried to fight for custody," he said, sounding defeated. "But she convinced the court she needed you girls because of her illness. And you two believed her so fully, I started to wonder if I was the crazy one." It felt like my entire world was caving in. The next few days blurred together. Emma called me, her voice unsteady, and told me she'd gone through Mom's medicine cabinet. There were tons of bottles, most of them with the labels ripped clean off. She also dug through Mom's calendar and found no sign, none, of all the doctor appointments she'd supposedly been going to. But the nail in the coffin came from Ben, Emma's boyfriend. His aunt worked at the hospital where Mom always claimed she got her treatments. Ben asked her to check the system. Not a single record. Nothing. The next morning, Emma showed up at Dad's house looking like she hadn't slept in days. "We need to talk," she said, her eyes swollen and red from crying. We sat for hours comparing notes. Turns out, Emma had gone through the same manipulation I had, just in the opposite direction. When I wasn't around, Mom would tell her I was lazy, useless, ungrateful. And when Emma wasn't there, Mom would shower her with affection while leaving me in the cold. "She made me believe you had it easy while I was killing myself working," Emma admitted, tears running down her face. "I hated you for years, Ava. I'm so sorry." We hugged, really hugged, for the first time in forever. It was like I had finally gotten my sister back. Dad joined us, filling in more gaps. He confessed he'd been sending Mom extra money for years. Money Emma and I never knew about. Money that went straight to her casino trips, her cocktails, her fun nights out, while we were scraping pennies to cover bills. "So what do we do now?" I asked. Emma's face hardened. "We confront her." I wasn't so sure. "She'll just deny it," I said. "We need proof." That's when Emma came up with an idea. She still had a spare key to Mom's house. We could set up cameras, catch her moving normally when nobody was watching. It felt wrong, invading her space like that. But what was the alternative? Let her keep bleeding us dry, keep lying to the family, keep making me feel worthless? We waited until the day of her weekly physical therapy appointment, which we were now pretty sure was just her excuse to sneak out shopping or gambling. When she left, the three of us, Emma, Dad, and me, snuck inside and placed small cameras in the living room, kitchen, and hallway. All the spots where she usually leaned on her cane, sighing dramatically about how hard it was to move. Then we waited. And when the footage came in, it was worse than I imagined. The second Mom was alone in that house. She didn't just move like a healthy person. She practically bounced around. She danced through the kitchen while cooking, full of energy, not a trace of illness in sight. She carried baskets of laundry up and down the stairs without breaking a sweat. I even caught her down on her hands and knees scrubbing a spot on the kitchen floor, the same task she'd made me do countless times because she claimed she couldn't handle it physically. But what really crushed me wasn't that. It was a phone call she made. We couldn't make out the voice on the other end, but Mom's side of the conversation was loud and clear. "The girls still don't have a clue," she said, laughing. "Emma sends me money every month like a little ATM, and Ava just does whatever I say." She chuckled and added, "It's the perfect setup." I felt sick watching her. Emma, sitting next to me, was shaking with anger. Dad looked like he was about to vomit. "We've seen enough," Emma said, stopping the video. "Let's go talk to her." We agreed to confront her the very next day. That night, I barely slept. My mind spun through every possibility. Would she deny it all, twist things around like she always did, or would she finally just tell us the truth? The next morning, the three of us piled into Dad's car and headed to Mom's place. It felt like I was driving to my own execution. My stomach was tied in knots. When Mom opened the door and saw us all together, she looked startled. Almost instantly, she slipped into her act. Her face tightened like she was in pain, her movements slowed, and she reached for her cane. "What's this about?" she asked, eyeing us suspiciously. "We know, Mom," Emma said, her voice flat. "We know you've been pretending." Mom's face shifted like a storm. First shock, then anger, then denial, before finally landing on outrage. "How dare you? After everything I've gone through, after my body has betrayed me, you're going to stand there and call me a liar?" I'll admit it, she was convincing. If I hadn't already seen the footage with my own eyes, I probably would have believed her. She turned on the waterworks, crying, accusing us of being cruel, of having no compassion. That's when Dad calmly pulled out his phone and hit play. First came the video of her dancing in the kitchen, then the clip of her laughing about us on the phone. The transformation was immediate. Her tears vanished, her posture straightened, and the cane was forgotten. Her face hardened. "Fine," she spat. "You caught me. So what?" The coldness in her voice shook me. This wasn't the mother I thought I knew. "Why?" I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. "Why would you do this to us?" Mom gave me a look like I was the dumbest person alive. "Do you realize how much money and attention I've gotten out of this? People pity me. They admire me. They help me. That beats breaking my back working 2 jobs to survive." "What about us?" Emma snapped. "I worked myself into the ground for years. Ava lost her whole childhood taking care of you." Mom shrugged like it was nothing. "That was your choice. Nobody forced you." But she had forced us, through guilt, through manipulation, through constantly pitting us against each other. She built the whole thing to serve her needs, not ours. "You made Ava think I was your favorite," Emma said, her voice trembling. "And you made me believe she was lazy and useless. You split us apart." Mom didn't even bother denying it. "It worked, didn't it? You two stayed busy fighting while I got what I wanted." I stood there stunned, trying to take in the reality that my own mother, the person who was supposed to love me, to protect me, had not only watched me struggle and cry, but had actually felt satisfied knowing it was all part of her plan. "We want the money back," Dad said firmly. "All of it. The money you took from me, everything Emma sent, the donations from family and friends, every cent." Mom laughed right in his face. "Good luck proving any of that. Who do you think people will side with? A poor, sick, single mother, or the ex-husband who abandoned her?" But she was wrong. We had the videos. We had her words. And, as Emma pointed out, we had one more thing. All the medical records that didn't exist. All the doctor visits that never happened. The treatments she never received. "You committed fraud, Mom," Emma said sharply. "That's a crime." For the first time, I saw fear flicker in her eyes. She tried to bluff. "You wouldn't turn in your own mother." But her voice didn't carry the same confidence anymore. "Watch us," Emma shot back. We walked out, leaving her frozen in her own living room. As we stepped outside, I was hit by a storm of emotions. Anger, grief, even a bit of relief. But most of all, there was this strange sense of freedom. For the first time, the weight of caring for someone who didn't need or deserve it was gone. The next few weeks were a blur. We went to the police and filed a fraud report. We reached out to family and friends who had sent her money, showing them the proof we had. Most people were stunned. Some doubted us at first, but the evidence spoke for itself. Mom tried to flip the story, painting us as selfish kids out to hurt her. A few believed her lies, but most didn't. The truth was too plain. The hardest part, though, was sorting through my own feelings. Some days I despised her. Other days I missed the version of her I thought I'd had, even though that woman never really existed. I started seeing a therapist. It helped. I began to understand that what Mom had done was abuse, that it wasn't my fault, and that I deserved better. Emma and I grew closer than we'd ever been. We talked about everything. Our childhood, how Mom had twisted us against each other, and what we wanted moving forward. For the first time, she felt like a real sister, not some rival in Mom's game. I moved in with Dad permanently, and we started rebuilding our bond too. He apologized over and over for not fighting harder back then, for not seeing through her earlier. I forgave him. He'd been trapped in her web, just like we had. About a month after we confronted her, Emma and I decided to go back to Mom's house to grab the last of our things. We hadn't spoken to her, but we'd heard through relatives that she might actually be facing charges. When we arrived, the place was unsettlingly quiet. Emma used her spare key to unlock the door. "Mom," she called out. Silence. We started gathering the things that mattered most to us. Old photo albums, childhood keepsakes, little mementos that carried real, sentimental weight. That's when I spotted something odd in Mom's bedroom. Every single piece of her clothing was gone. Her jewelry box sat empty. The drawer where she always kept her passport and important papers had been completely cleaned out. It looked like she had carefully erased every trace of herself from the house. "Emma," I called out. "I think Mom's gone." We tore through the house looking for answers, and that's when we found a note sitting on the kitchen table. My hands shook as I picked it up and read it out loud. "Girls, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Don't waste your time looking for me. I'm not sorry for what I did. I did what I had to do to survive. Maybe someday you'll understand. Maybe you won't. Either way, this is goodbye. Mom." Emma and I just stared at each other, completely stunned. Mom had chosen to run instead of facing the fallout of her lies. Part of me felt relieved. I wouldn't have to see her in court or sit through every ugly detail again. But another part of me felt robbed of any real closure. We called the police and reported that she'd skipped town. They promised to look for her, but honestly, deep down, I wasn't sure I even wanted her found. What good would it do? She'd never apologize, never own up, never truly understand what she'd put us through. Sitting on the front steps of what used to be our home, I turned to Emma and asked, "So, what do we do now?" "We move forward," she said simply. "We make better lives than the ones she tried to trap us in." I nodded, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a strange kind of peace settle over me. Mom running away was just another stunt, another attempt to stay in control of the story. But it didn't matter anymore. She didn't have control of us. A week later, we got an unexpected break. A woman named Susan, who worked at a hotel about 3 hours away, had seen our story on the local news. She swore she recognized Mom as a recent guest, one who had paid cash and signed in with a fake name. By the time police checked, she was gone again. But this time she'd left something behind. A journal. The police handed it over to us after deciding it wasn't evidence they needed to keep. Reading it felt like stepping into the mind of someone I didn't even know. Mom had laid out her entire scheme like it was some kind of proud memoir. She described how she'd studied the symptoms of MS, how she'd practiced her sick act in the mirror until it looked convincing, how she tricked doctors into writing prescriptions without ever really diagnosing her. She bragged about how simple it was to fool everyone. She admitted she loved the sympathy, and she wrote about us. She spelled out how she'd intentionally pitted Emma and me against each other so we wouldn't notice what she was doing. She admitted she resented us for tying her down with motherhood when she would have preferred to live her life however she pleased. The cruelty of those words cut deeper than anything I'd ever heard from her in person. But buried in those pages was something else, evidence. She listed the names of doctors she'd conned, bank accounts where she'd stashed money, and details about other scams she'd pulled before pretending to have MS. It was like she wanted to record her own crimes, confident no one would ever read them. We turned the journal over to Linda, the detective in charge of the case. Linda called it a gold mine, something that would make their case ironclad, once they managed to track Mom down. If they managed to. As spring rolled into summer, I found myself caring less and less about updates on Mom's case. Instead, I focused on putting myself back together, on healing, rebuilding my connection with Emma and Dad, and figuring out who I was when I wasn't stuck being the caretaker. I went back to school, made actual friends for the first time in forever, and even signed up for an art class at the community center. It was something I'd always dreamed about, but never had the time or freedom for when I was wrapped up in Mom's world. One evening, I was out in Dad's garage, now my makeshift studio, working on a painting when Emma showed up unexpectedly. She leaned against the doorframe, watching me for a while before saying, "I've been thinking. Remember how Mom always told you you weren't talented enough for art school?" I nodded, pretending it didn't still sting. "Well," she said, "she was lying about that too. This is really good, Ava." Her words lit something warm inside me. "Thanks," I murmured. "I want to help you apply to that art school, the one Mom always swore we couldn't afford," Emma went on. "I've been saving. Between that and scholarships, I think we can make it work." I set my paintbrush down, overwhelmed. Really, she said firmly. "It's time we both start living our own lives, the ones Mom never let us have." We hugged, and in that moment, something shifted inside me. Mom's betrayal had broken me in ways I was still figuring out, but it had also freed me. For the first time ever, I was finding out who I was without her shadow. I didn't know if they'd ever catch her. I didn't know if she'd ever stand trial for what she'd done. But I knew this. She no longer had power over me or over us. We were building something new, something real. A family built on truth, not lies. And that felt like the greatest victory of all. I'll never forget the day the phone call came. It was a random Tuesday morning, about 6 months after Mom had vanished. I was getting ready for my art class when my phone rang. It was Linda, the detective. "We found her," she said simply. My chest tightened, heart racing. I told her I'd call back and immediately rang Emma. She was at work, but agreed to take her break early. 20 minutes later, the three of us were on a call with Linda. "Where is she?" Emma asked. "Atlantic City," Linda replied. "She's been working as a cocktail waitress at a small casino under the name Sarah Johnson." I almost laughed. Sarah was Mom's middle name. Johnson was our grandmother's maiden name. Not exactly criminal genius material. "So what happens now?" I asked. "We're bringing her back tomorrow," Linda said. "With that journal and the videos, the fraud charges are solid. I just wanted to give you both a heads up before it hits the news." After we hung up, Emma and I sat in silence, trying to absorb it all. I had such mixed feelings. Part of me wanted to see her finally face the music. Another part of me wished she'd just stayed gone. "Are you going to see her?" Emma finally asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "Are you?" Emma let out a long sigh. I figured I had to see her, at least once, just to look her in the eyes and be sure I finally understood she wasn't who I thought she was. I nodded along. I understood that feeling. It was hard to completely let go of the idea that maybe Mom would explain herself, maybe even show some kind of regret. The next day, Emma came by Dad's place and picked me up, and the two of us drove over to the county detention center. Dad offered to come with us, but this was something Emma and I felt we needed to do on our own. We ended up waiting in this cold little room with plastic chairs and buzzing fluorescent lights. When they brought Mom in, I barely recognized her. Her hair was dyed a sharp platinum blonde, and she'd dropped a lot of weight. But the biggest change wasn't her looks. It was the way she carried herself. The frail, weak woman she pretended to be for years was completely gone. She walked in with her head high, moving confidently, none of that sickly shuffle she'd faked so well during her MS act. She sat down across from us like she was meeting us for coffee. No shock, no emotion at all. "Hello, girls," she said, like we'd just stopped by for a casual visit. "Why did you do it?" Emma asked, not wasting time. Mom shrugged like it didn't matter. "I already told you. It was easier than working." "No." I cut in, finally finding my voice. "Why did you treat me the way you did? Why did you make me feel like I was nothing?" For a split second, I thought I saw something in her eyes. Maybe guilt, maybe shame. But it was gone almost as quick as it came, like I'd imagined it. "I needed someone to take care of the house," she said flatly. "You were better at it than Emma." She was better at bringing in money. I just used you both where you were most useful. Her words hit me like a slap. There was no warmth, no motherly love, nothing. To her, we weren't daughters. We were tools. Did you ever care about us at all? Emma asked, her voice cracking a little. Mom tilted her head like she was honestly thinking about it. I suppose I did, in my way, when you were babies. Before it got complicated. We didn't stay much longer. There wasn't anything left to say, no big answers coming. She was who she was, someone who couldn't love the way a mother should. Walking back to the car, I felt this strange lightness. Not happy, but free. The last bit of hope that she might someday turn into the mom I'd always wanted was gone, and with it went the last of the guilt I carried for her. You okay? Emma asked once we got in the car. Yeah, I said, and to my own surprise, I meant it. I actually am. In the months that followed, life started to settle into a new rhythm. Mom's trial moved fast, and with all the evidence stacked against her, the jury didn't take long. She got 5 years for fraud, with a chance at parole after 3. Emma and I didn't even bother going to the sentencing. We'd already had our closure in that detention center. Dad helped me apply to art schools, and to my shock, I got accepted into my dream program with a partial scholarship. Between that, Dad's support, and Emma insisting on pitching in, I was actually able to go. For the first time, I was chasing something just for me. Not to please Mom, not to hold the house together, but because I loved it. That summer, Emma and Ben got engaged. She asked me to be her maid of honor, and I bawled like a little kid when she did. Planning the wedding together pulled us even closer. We'd send each other ridiculous dress ideas and crack jokes about mailing Mom an invite to prison. That dark humor became our way of healing. By fall, I was moving into my dorm at art school. Dad helped me hang up some of my paintings and made sure I had everything I needed before he left. He gave me this long hug and said, "I'm so proud of you, Ava. I know it doesn't fix everything, but I want you to know that." That meant more to me than I could say. After years of being invisible, being seen and valued was still something I was learning to get used to. My roommate, Zoe, turned out to be great. A photography major with a wicked sense of humor who didn't mind when my nightmares woke me up or when I needed space on the tough days. I told her about Mom pretty early, just so she'd understand if I seemed off sometimes. Instead of pulling back, she told me her dad had been emotionally abusive too, so she kind of understood. For the first time, I met someone my age who knew what it was like to grow up with a parent that didn't love you right. Then Christmas rolled around, and something unexpected happened. I got a letter from Mom. At first, I almost threw it in the trash, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was a short note and a small key. "This opens a safety deposit box at First National Bank in our old town," it said. "What's inside belongs to you. I should have given it to you years ago." That was it. No apology, no explanations. Just her signature. I called Emma right away, and the next day she drove down so we could go to the bank together. The manager led us to a private room and left us with the small metal box the key unlocked. Inside was over $30,000 in cash, along with a pile of old photos I'd never seen before. Pictures of me as a baby, with Mom smiling like she really loved me. There were crayon drawings I'd made, report cards with my grades circled in red, even a lock of my baby hair tied with a ribbon. The kind of keepsakes a normal mom would hold on to. At the very bottom was another note. "This is your college fund. I've been adding to it since you were born. I never sent it, even when things got hard. The rest are things I saved when you were little, before I changed. I don't expect forgiveness. Just know there was a time when I was a real mother to you." Emma and I sat there in silence, trying to make sense of it. It was a glimpse of the woman Mom might have been, or maybe used to be, before something broke inside her. "What do you think happened to her?" I asked Emma. "What made her change like that?" Emma shook her head. "I don't know. Maybe we'll never know." In the end, we split the money, even though Mom clearly meant it for me. It felt right that way. Emma put her half toward her and Ben's first house. I kept most of mine for college expenses, but used a small amount to buy a professional camera, something I'd wanted for years to photograph subjects for my paintings. The photos and mementos from the safety deposit box were harder to know what to do with. I ended up keeping them in a special box under my bed. They didn't change how I felt about Mom or what she'd done, but they were evidence that she hadn't always been the monster she became. There was some small comfort in that. Life went on. I threw myself into my classes, discovering a talent for portrait work that even my toughest professors recognized. I made friends, went on a few dates, started building a life that was entirely my own. Emma and Ben got married in a beautiful spring ceremony where I cried happy tears instead of sad ones. Dad met a kind woman named Mary who actually bothered to learn all about my art projects and came to my first student exhibition. Sometimes I'd get questions about Mom from people who knew our story. "Have you forgiven her?" They'd ask, like forgiveness was the obvious end goal of this whole journey. The truth was more complicated than that. I didn't hate mom anymore. Hate required too much energy that I preferred to put elsewhere. But forgiveness implied that things were resolved, healed, okay now. And some things just can't be fixed with forgiveness. What I learned instead was acceptance. I accepted that mom was deeply flawed, possibly mentally ill in ways I'd never understand. I accepted that she'd caused real damage that would always be part of me. And I accepted that her failure as a mother didn't determine my worth or my future. On the year anniversary of mom's sentencing, Emma and I met up for dinner. We didn't plan it that way on purpose. But when we realized the date, we decided to acknowledge it rather than ignore it. To surviving, Emma said, raising her glass. To more than surviving, I replied. To actually living. We clinked glasses, and I felt that now familiar sense of peace wash over me. Mom had taken so much from us over the years, our childhoods, our self-esteem, our trust in other people. But in the end, she couldn't take our future. That belonged to us alone. I still don't know if mom will try to contact us when she gets out of prison in a few years. Part of me hopes she won't. We've all moved on to healthier places. But if she does, I'm prepared. Not with anger or bitterness, but with strong boundaries and the knowledge that I no longer need her approval to know my own worth. That knowledge was hard-won, but it's mine now. No one can ever take it away.